Chris Daw is a King's Counsel, an eminent criminal barrister, feels very strongly about all this. Chris, what's your take? I mean, I should say at the outset that your views on the decriminalisation of all drugs would probably give Sophia, amongst many others, the vapours. But specifically on this, what's your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that we're very lucky in this country because we have a panel of experts, of which Professor Stevens used to be a member, called the Advisory Council on the Misuse of Drugs. And thankfully for all of us, they produced an excellent report on this issue earlier this month. And they went through it with enormous care the evidence about the relatively small number of people who suffer serious harm from nitrous oxide. And it is a tiny number. We're talking about 3 or 4 on average deaths a year compared to almost 10,000 a year from alcohol, and when you get onto the topic of obesity, including child obesity, and the deaths that result from that, you're into a astronomically greater number. So this is a minute problem, and the committee or the advisory council set forth in great detail a number of recommendations, which I'm sure Sophia would agree with, I would agree with. They include restricting direct-to-consumer sales, restricting canister sizes, restricting the volume of purchases at once. Universal activities such as prevention amongst young people and in schools, advice and information at festivals, all sorts of extremely sensible, rational policies which would address this fairly small risk, which, let's be frank, has been blown out of all proportion for one reason, so that the government could look like they were getting tough on the latest fad in the headlines. They have ignored completely the recommendations of all of the experts and decided to do something which will have only one effect, and it's been discussed already. That effect will be young people get criminal records who wouldn't get criminal records as it stands now. That's not a good thing. It's a terrible thing for those young people, and it's a terrible thing to interfere with sensible, evidence-based policy for political reasons, and that's all that's happening here. On
littering, there are laws in place anyway.
Well, of course, there are laws in place, and I think it's important that your listeners understand that driving under the influence of nitrous oxide is a criminal offence. It's a serious criminal offence. Driving under the influence of heroin or cocaine or cannabis or any other substance is a serious criminal offence, just as, of course, we all know driving under the influence of alcohol is a serious criminal offence. So that's already criminalised, and if someone is stopped by the police and they are under the influence of nitrous oxide, they can be prosecuted for that offence, and they can have their driving licence taken away. But you're absolutely right. Of course, all of the other issues here. I mean, are we going to criminalise McDonald's? Because let's frank, if you drive down any country lane, you're pretty likely to see 20 or 30 different McDonald's wrappers at some point along the way. And just because something's a litter issue doesn't mean that it becomes a criminal issue to possess that substance or that article. Littering, you're absolutely right, is already criminalised. But let's be frank, criminalising things, generally speaking, solves nothing.